Nope. Yes, yes, it's working. Hello, everyone. Glad to see you back. So lunch is over. So if you could, the last one could please join the room and take a seat. So first of all, I'm very pleased to see you once again, and I will see you at the end of the symposium, obviously, but I'm here to introduce your next flash talk. But before starting the presentation, I would like to thank all our sponsors, Airbus, Indra, NR, Collins Aerospace, SkyGuide, Frequentis, Honeywell, Hansen, and our partner, European Commission. Once again, without them, nothing would be possible. So our next subject is about sustainability Sandbox. It's a subject I think is very important, and I'm really proud to be presenting today because one of my other activities is to be in charge of the French Innovative Transport Agency. So transport means that we not only address aviation, but obviously we address a lot of aviation, but all modes of transport. And as aviation, all transport modes have to face the same challenges to go sustainable, to be resilient to climate change, and to take advantage of new technologies, the data, the AI, and so on. And it's a real challenge for the regulatory to comply with that, because innovation can be disruptive, not only for the operators, but also in terms of regulatory frameworks that might or might not well be applied to new technology, to new innovation. So in practice, regulatory sandbox aim to promote experimental innovation with a controlled and supervised environment, while also enhancing regulators' understanding of emerging technology. So in this talk, we will have two speakers that will discuss the regulatory sandbox implemented in their respective countries. So the first one is Antoine Martin, who couldn't join us today. So there will be a video that Antoine has kindly recorded. So Antoine Martin is an air traffic management expert with over 25 years experience in air navigation services and also US air traffic management, so UTM. He is currently taking care of U-Space with the French Civil Aviation Safety Directorate. He previously served in DSNA, notably as Program Director for Innovative Services or as Regional Manager for Approach and Tower Services. Antoine is also a member of the French Transport Innovation Agency, so I have the chance to work with Antoine regularly. He is also the author of articles on the use of regulatory sandbox to support innovation in civil aviation. These articles are easily available on LinkedIn. Okay, so I give the floor to Antoine.
What is a regulatory sandbox? First, it is not to be confused with an innovation hub. It is not a digital sandbox either. No, it is a structured experimentation approach known for having been revealed in the fintech sector in the UK. It is about testing new services or business models in real conditions, but within a regulatory framework that has been relaxed thanks to special supervision and dedicated safeguards. Is it appropriate for civil aviation? Well, obstacles to innovation in civil aviation come from its complexity and size on a global scale. But there are also many other systemic obstacles. How aviation can then allow the rapid emergence of innovations for decarbonization? Well, not without experimentation. We need learning with trial and error on new products, new services, innovative concepts of operations, alternative techniques, or business models. Some countries have adopted the regulatory sandbox. This is the case in France, in the telecommunication and in the energy sectors, Italy, in the aviation sector, for instance. The regulator's strategy is therefore to support innovation rather than suffer from it. Sandboxes support indeed collaboration between industry and regulators. A project owner gains flexibility. It has also greater safety for its investments, as this reduces legal uncertainties. Sandboxes also develop skills of the parties and their awareness. It helps collaborative decision-making, transparency, trust, original ideas with a constructive mindset around a common problem. Even better, risk management can evolve as the innovation shifts the risk. Sandboxes can faster problem detection and reduce approval times. The regulator can learn to adapt regulations. The sandbox can typically be a win-win cooperation. To do so, one can use an exemption framework if already available. There are also existing European Union flexibility means, such as ALTMOX, DAT, special conditions, permits to fly. There are many other options. In any case, the regulatory levers should always be identified, same as for whatever else is required, such that technical expertise, intellectual property rights, funding. This is why a regulatory sandbox could be defined as any operational and legal framework that allows learning by doing in a real situation, in collaboration between the project owner and the competent authorities, in support of an innovation and the related regulations. It includes resources and arrangements necessary to achieve the objectives set by the sponsor. It has limited scope and duration. However, a sandbox might be unsafe, as for any immature evolution. A sandbox can also be unfair. It may create a distortion between those who apply regulations and those who benefit from a differentiated framework. There is, as well, a risk of fragmentation of the EU market. This is why sandboxes should at least meet some feasibility criteria, such as the involved innovation is eligible, the goals are limited, formal and legitimate, the system is lawful, open and transparent. Obviously, the organization must be workable. Yes, regulatory sandboxes are brilliant tools for innovation in civil aviation. All the more as decarbonization might require many cross-innovation between several components of the aviation industry. But make no mistake, this can be complex and costly. So, while designing a regulatory sandbox, you should always include iterative cost-benefit assessments. Thank you for listening. I wish you a very good conference.
Thank you, Antoine. So now let me introduce you our next speaker, Jan Peter. He is Director of Strategic Analysis and Transformation at Civil Aviation Authority Norway. In his role, he is responsible for identifying and ramping up efforts in areas of future importance. Key areas when engaging in emerging issues are the development of new competencies, we have the occasion to talk of that earlier, national and international cooperation, obviously we are an example here, and paving the way for research and innovative technologies and solutions. Jan Peter has broad operational and strategical experience within aviation, both military and civilian. So just to remind you that there will be a Slido for the audience. I don't know if it's just after I take a risk. Also, no. So there is still the Slido, so you can use to ask questions, and Jan will answer them. I give you the floor, Jan.
All right. Thank you very much for that, and good afternoon. I have a couple of minutes to be telling you a little bit about what we're doing, and I will suggest as this title as a sustainability sandbox. And it's an interesting title because for us, I'm representing now Norway and not just the authority. There's a good reason for why I'm here, but also the country, the state of Norway and the region. And I'll tell you a little bit why aviation is so fundamental to us. So the sustainability in my context, in my perspective, or in our perspective, is all about environmental sustainability, it's about geographical sustainability, it's about commercial sustainability, so it's all these things. And I'll talk a little bit about what we've done to give you a little bit of insight into that. First of all, this is our country. This is where I live. Way up north, we have an interesting neighbor in the east. I'm not talking about Sweden, which are interesting as well. But the role of aviation for us is we are totally dependent. And that makes us also an interesting driver for new technologies. And to us, zero emission, disruptive technologies, being able to fly quite short to begin with, rather small payload and all that, that's really interesting. And what we're trying to do is to attract new technologies and really try to test them out live, in real life, understanding these technologies. We have, as you see, we have 43 state-owned airports. Now, that's a fact. In other parts of the world, there are a lot of privately held airports. These are state-owned. We, as an authority as well, is of course state-owned by the Minister of Transport. So that combined is why we have joined hands with our infrastructure provider, Avinor. They're both controlling these 43 airports and as an ANSP. So we're collaborating now for an international test arena, and that's what I'll be talking a little bit about. Road and rail does not work. Some places it works. Of course, I move about on stage a bit. Of course, down here it works between the cities. Some of these, by the way, are flights, some of the heaviest city pairings in Europe. So we need to fly a lot. But looking on the coast here, we have city pairings that are from 35 kilometers. But if you fly 35 kilometers instead of driving 3 hours, it's a pretty good case. And it's critical for us. For us, it's our public transport in many areas of the country. It's also then critical for industry. It's critical if my child needs to go from up there and down to the big hospital in a city. We need aviation for emergency medical services, etc. And now, this or last year, was that the support of a systemic understanding of new technologies was funded into the National Transport Plan, which is a 12-year plan. So that gave us finally funding to really have this systemic push for establishing something that could aid us in understanding technologies and putting them into use. So why a sandbox? Well, the timing is good. We talked about this for quite a number of years. Now we're seeing that the technologies are becoming more mature. Whether that is, of course, we're mostly interested in the zero-emission or low-emission technologies. So whether it's a battery electric, hybrid electric, hydrogen-based, or an eVTOL, or even heavy drones, it's of interest. But we need a systemic approach today. And yesterday, I've heard the key words systemic, collaboration, and sharing data, and trust, I think, a number of times. So what they've tried to do... Sorry. Should I start over again? You got it? OK. I'll speak quite loudly, so I expect you heard some of it at least. Or just look at the pictures. So the systemic approach is needed. So what we're doing with our sandbox is not to allow for one manufacturer to test out one aircraft in a protected airspace. Yes, we have plenty of airports. We have protected airspace we can set up for this. But this is about taking a rather mature technology, i.e. having flown prototypes for a number of times and proven that you have something. And then you put it into the ecosystem. I'll tell you a little bit about the first concept we're launching this summer. So the idea is to be testing new concepts on the roll all the time with these different technologies I've just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. We need to collaborate. I'll say a little bit more about that. So we, together with Avinor, established this international test arena, and we got now the funding, the long-term funding. So this is not a one-off thing. This is something we need to, if you imagine that we're here today, we have these promising technologies. And out here, we as a country would like to have these technologies taken into use. We want them. And from a societal perspective, our citizens are used to electrification. We're used to hydrogen drivelines. Our private car sector now is new cars, 94% are electric, EVs. We have the infrastructure has followed. We are all, I think, also the world leading in maritime transition to electric and hydrogen-driven ferries and shuttles, etc. And we're working now on battery drone ships, etc. So this is sort of I will not spend much time on this because this is just what it looks like. But as I said, if you imagine that we're here today, and out here are the first technologies functioning in the market. The first eVTOLs, or the first battery electric cargo aircraft, or the first passenger aircraft. And we need to identify what are the barriers between here and out here when you get things to the market. And then we also want to reduce the barriers and provide scalability. It seems like we have found some kind of a sweet spot because we're getting a lot of attention from, and this is a global initiative. This is not for Norway, by Norway, in Norway. This is about triggering you guys and others, manufacturers and operators, to reach out. Because we have these calls in the EU to begin with, but we have global attention, and they are contacting us to say, can we do this? We're concentrating in 3 areas. It's about the airport infrastructure, airspace. It's about the value chains, understanding the hydrogen value chain, setting up a limited network to begin with, understanding the electric needs. Do we have the grid for that? We have just a couple of weeks back, Avinor, for the first time, they purchased 2 fast chargers for aircraft. 1 mobile, 1 fixed. So for this first concept, I'll tell you a little bit about. That will start this August. We'll have both a mobile and a fixed fast charger. We'll be operating cargo between 2 cities. One thing I'd like to underline is that, so this is what we do. So this is where we invite operators, preferably together with manufacturer, to be operating, because we see, also from the maritime sector, that the instances where the manufacturer has the client on board creates a faster innovation process. And this, we believe, will be exactly the same in innovation in the aviation sector. So one more thing before I jump here. It's on the communication side. Because as I said, this is not about the manufacturer proving that the aircraft can fly. It's about putting that aircraft into an operational context. So what we're trying to do is to simulate a CAT operation, commercial air transport. So the aircraft will not be certified, not yet, but we put it into that operational context so we really learn about what happens when they take this technology into use. Is it delivering as promised? Do we understand the needs for the infrastructure and the needs for power, need for energy? Do we have the regulation in place? And this communication is so important because it's one of the reasons I think also it's important we do it in Norway, or at least we can contribute, is that we need to communicate with society. We need to help the public acceptance of new aviation solutions, because we really see that in quite a few market areas, it'll be a solid push and a development for aviation to make new uses of this. Not just emerging medical services, but many other uses. So this is just a picture of the aircraft. That's the first one. It's a beta technology aircraft from the US. They are operating with Bristow. They normally do is a large offshore helicopter. They also run an airline. They are, both of them, they came to us and we selected them between a couple of different concepts. So they will be operating a cargo flight between 2 major cities. If you have 2 major cities in Norway, they're major cities. Not big in your context, probably. But they will be operating this. And then we set up the regulatory sandbox as well for that. I think I would just like to mention, because I've been listening to what has been said today, and one thing that's been touched on a couple of times is trust. And the sharing of data, that was the expression. I think that hits a spot. Now we have been working on this for about a year, establishing this, understanding how to do it. We're still learning. Everything is learning. I work with the UK CAA, closely with the EASA. We're doing the regulatory sandbox with the EASA. There's a clear appetite in Europe for this and also at a global scale. But there's trust. I think that may be the single most difficult thing to do, not the technological thing, not the regulatory deviations we need or the permits we need, the safety issues. I think that'll work, but really it's developing knowledge in a way that we can share. is developing knowledge and understanding in a way that really can help us take the right steps moving forward. A startup, naturally, a startup company would be inclined to protect as much as possible. I understand that. Being a public organization, we are mandated by law to share as much as possible. So, and then we have the other commercial entities somewhere in between. So I think the mix of startup companies and also established players is good. And I think over time, we'll help each other really creating new knowledge. So I'll be inviting, that's the reason why I'm here as well, because I had a conversation with a representative from EUROCAE some way back at an ASEA activity we had. And then we discussed this. Okay, because we do this also for the regulatory learning, understanding what are the regulatory challenges we have, how can we prepare for new regulation, how can we as an authority, whether it's us or EASA, develop our competency on hydrogen or electric solutions. And then I think you fall in, now I'm talking about EUROCAE and the connected activities, you fall into a bit of the same category. It's about understanding how both regulation and standards can play a role. So when we do this to learn with a very practical approach, putting it into real operations, I think there's also a chance to pull out some interesting perspectives and learnings for organizations like all the work you're doing at EUROCAE. So I think that's how am I doing on time? You all right? Okay. So what I would do is to invite you. It's not that we can allow anyone to come and fly anything. So we have set up the qualification system for that. So I think we'll see development. I hope that we'll be looking at both possibly eVTOLs, hydrogen solutions, maybe even heavy or larger certified, thank you, larger certified solutions on the unmanned side. And then we'll take it from there. I would like to also have some discussion on how to communicate on this, because that's a challenge. It's a positive challenge. We're seeing how can we get the most out of it, because this is about spreading sort of the word on behalf of aviation. And I think just one last thing is, I really would like to encourage you all to step outside aviation as well. Because I see that the work we've done so far, I could not have gotten here without interacting with other sectors. Other sectors are really good at this. Other political departments are really good at this, at innovation, at development. So we really need to open our eyes and look at different solutions with new collaborative partners. All right. That was it. I think maybe, do we have time for a question? No time. Okay, so here you have the point.
Okay, so thank you very much. I would appreciate a big round of applause for Antoine and Jan. Definitely a fascinating subject and very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've learned a lot, and also about Norway geography, but that's a personal concern. Okay, so thank you very much. Next, I will give the floor to Attica. Yeah. So please.
Thank you.
Okay.
First, a big thank you to young Peter for that very interesting and insightful talk. So thus the stage is now set for the next important discussion we're about to have. Hi, I'm Attica Pilan, Technical Program Manager at EUROCAE, focusing on sustainability and safety in aviation. In September 2023, scientists revealed that 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries had been crossed. This is a warning of an urgent need for action to prevent further environmental harm. Among the contributors to this ecological strain is the aviation sector, which we are all in. So, how do we navigate the complexities of a changing world where environmental protection and resilience to climate change must coexist? The aviation sector, long a cornerstone of global connectivity and economic growth, is increasingly aware of its role in contributing to climate change. Yet, this very sector is also on the front line of grappling with the impacts of it. with disruptions ranging from rising temperatures to more frequent extreme weather events. This panel will explore this delicate balance. How can aviation continue its path towards sustainability, adopting innovative technologies like low carbon fuels and electric propulsion, while simultaneously ensuring resilience to the very climate risk it's working to reduce? To discuss this critical issue, we at EUROCAE are privileged to have a distinguished panel of experts with us today. These individuals bring a wealth of knowledge, experience, and insight, and I'm very excited to hear their perspective on how we can balance environmental protection with the resilience needed to keep aviation safe and sustainable in the face of a changing climate. So, without further ado, let's welcome our panelists, Nicolas Rivaben, Scientific Officer on Aircraft-Based Observations at the World Meteorological Organization, Eric Maury, Head of Environment and Energy at Airbus, Rachel Burbidge, Senior Policy Officer, Environment and Climate Change at EUROCONTROL, David Alexander, Senior Director from SAE, and Michael Nachtigaeller, Program Manager from Lufthansa. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel number 6 of the EUROCAE Symposium. Today, we gather the discussion about a critical topic, aviation and climate effects, balancing environmental protection with the resilience in a changing world. As you know, the aviation industry stands at a crossroad. On one hand, we face undeniable climate challenges, rising temperatures, shifting weather patterns, and operational risks that demand urgent actions. On the other, we have the opportunity to lead a transformative change through innovation, collaboration, and robust policy in a changing world. Our distinguished panelists bring diverse expertise from organizations different from around the world. They will share insights on how the industry is adapting to climate impacts, mitigating emissions, and building resilience. So let me introduce you, Eric Maury from Airbus on a cutting-edge aircraft design and fuel alternatives, Michael Nachtigaeller from Lufthansa, sharing airlines' perspective on sustainability, Rachel Burbidge from EUROCONTROL, addressing ATM modernization and resilience, and David Alexander from SAE, highlighting the role of standard in decarbonization and mitigation. So, first of all, we need to understand what is the climate system. We need to understand why it's important to understand this. As you know, the sun is the primary driver of the air climate systems, and we need to understand how this impacts at the real world. Because the sun emits a shortwave radiation. This shortwave radiation is responsible to heat the land. The land is heated and then emits a long-wave radiation. This long-wave radiation is responsible to heat the atmosphere. So this is important because the sun is not heating the atmosphere, it's the land heating the atmosphere. How? Because there are some gases that trap the heat from the ongoing long-wave radiation and increase the temperatures. These gases are responsible to release also the radiation to the space. This release of the radiation is so-called atmospheric window. So the increase of the gases, these gases close this atmospheric window. So if the atmospheric window is closed, this will change the redistribution of the energy at worldwide level, and this creates a strong perturbation in the weather patterns. This change of the weather patterns are responsible to change in temperature, wind, humidity, precipitation, and other variables such as hazardous phenomena for aviation industry. So here you can see what happened with the temperature for the last 150 years. You can see the climate spiral on the right, which is a nice picture in order to show how it's increasing the temperature during the year. You can see the different colors. Red means the higher temperatures, and gold, you can see the lower temperatures. What is the deviation from the average temperature between last, if you're comparing with the pre-industrial levels? In the other side, you are seeing the monthly global surface air temperatures anomalies, which is focused in Europe. And you can see how from 2024, the temperature is above the 1.5 degrees above the global average level. So this is important to remark that temperature is increasing, and increasing very sharp last 4 years. So first of all, I would like to invite you to share your thoughts using this slide. The question I really appreciate to discuss with our distinguished panelists. So let's check what is the impact of the aviation industry. What happened with that? As you know, the temperature is changing the tropopause. This changed the position of the sandstorms. This creating strong condition for icing. And also this increase of the temperature affects the operation at airports, and also an increase of the fogs, thunderstorms, hurricanes, and also snowstorms. Another interesting thing is related to the increasing winds related to the jet stream that creates turbulence, and also the increase of the rise level from the coastal airports. So what is the real contribution of the aviation on this? Here you can see a nice figure from the Commission for Aeronautics of the Environmental Protection of ICAO, number 12, and you can see the baseline, including the fleet renewal of the contribution of the aviation industry, the amount of the carbon dioxide emissions at worldwide level. You can see a strong, deep, sharp in 2020, and this increasing after that, and it is expected by 2050 an increase of twice the current levels. But what is the real contribution for the climate system? You can see in the right a nice picture related what is the effective radiative forcing. You can see the carbon dioxide is the main driver of the effective radiative forcing. But if you are including non-carbon dioxide emission, including water vapor, because water vapor also is a non-carbon dioxide emission from the aviation industry, you can see this effect is not clear. We need to understand really what is the real impact of the aviation industry, not only for carbon dioxide. We need to understand non-carbon dioxide emission. Because of that, we need aircraft-based observation to understand what happened in the troposphere. So what is the best solution? How to tackle this situation? First of all, we need to understand and improve the weather prediction. We need to establish a strategy on the operational management, to understand atmospheric science, and also to understand how to improve the technology and also fuel for the new aircrafts. So we need to understand the technology. We need to understand what happened at geopolitical and economical aspects. We need to also create a public-private engagement, a public policy at the state level. and also we need regulations. So, setting this scene, we need to approach these two questions. What are measures are being taken by your organization to address and mitigate these effects? And also, how is your organization working on adaptation actions at institutional, structural, and societal level of aviation in Europe? So let's listen, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicolas. Buenas tardes a todos. The rest will be in English, if you allow me. Happy to be with you. I'm new in the EUROCAE forum. I'm not at all an airspace management expert at Airbus, but I'm running a team which is dealing with all climate and energy topics with regard to decarbonization. So my challenge is to cover all of that, climate impact mitigation and climate change adaptation in the 5 minutes that I have been allocated. So I take the challenge. Very rapidly, on the upper left of the image, you probably recognize some lasagna of the decarbonization, so showing what are the key lever arms on which aviation stakeholders can play with to try reducing emission down to as close as possible to zero by 2050, which we believe at Airbus is probably the biggest challenge that aviation has ever faced up to now. As mentioned shortly by Jaime, I think earlier this morning, there are 3 major lever arms on which aviation can play with to reduce emissions. The 2 first are just basically reducing the level of energy which is used by aviation, and as a consequence of that, reducing the CO2 emission. So this is very much about fleet renewal, and to have an order of magnitude in mind, as we speak, the fleet in service is basically composed of 30% of latest generation of aircraft, meaning 70% of the fleet. Operating today is all generation of aircraft, so we understand that the dynamic of fleet replacement is going to play a critical role over the next couple of decades to get the latest generation aircraft, which basically burn 20% less fuel, to come to the market and reduce the CO2 emission from the fleet. Then, on the longer term, probably at the end of the next decade, we will introduce, when I say we, the airframer, a new generation of aircraft to push further the fuel efficiency. And the 2 critical design parameters on which we are going to play with will be the wing design with high-span wing, and as well as the propulsion system to try to look to the ultimate propulsion system in terms of efficiency. So there is a big debate about whether the engine will be ducted or not. So we have to follow what is going to happen on that front. The second level arm to play with to reduce emissions is improving the operational efficiency. So it's where the ATM and airspace management actors play a key role. It's around 10% of the total effort. We have to have in mind that on this, the large majority of the improvements that we have been contemplating for the past year are related to airline capacity management in terms of densification of the cabin and the load factor, which play a critical role in making the use of the aircraft the best efficient possible. And then the last chunk is about changing the energy, so moving away from fossil energy, the fossil kerosene we are used to use, and moving to non-fossil energy, the lion's share of that being the sustainable aviation fuel. I will not elaborate more on that. It's probably the biggest challenge for aviation to be present in a sector where we were not used to go and dig for. And as mentioned by Jaime, I think again this morning, there is on SAF a question of affordability. Today SAF are 3 to 4 times more expensive than the fossil kerosene, and as well in terms of absolute volumes that could be available for aviation. I'd like just to finish with what Nicolas mentioned rapidly, which is about aviation effect on climate. It's not only about CO2, but there are as well the cruise emissions, which play a role into that warming effect, notably the contrails, and the contrails that are formed and persist in very specific atmospheric conditions where the level of humidity is very high. As mentioned earlier this morning, there are several EU-funded projects through CESAR that are addressing the topic, in particular with regard to the potential of operational mitigation, so meaning avoiding to fly in the area where the contrail is forming are going to persist, So Airbus is leading one of the key projects, which is named Ciconia, but we have Thales working on Concerto. I just wanted to mention that because here there will be clearly a challenge for the airspace management system and ATM. Not only the science is not ready to implement such operation in real life, but as well the complexity of the air system management may have to cope with additional constraints, so avoiding some area to fall through, which, as we speak, is not a guarantee for success. Then, no. Which button? There are too many buttons.
Don't worry.
So the symposium is finished. Sorry. Sorry, Michael. I know that you need to run to catch your flights. Okay, but I'm finished. I promise. Oh, no, sorry. You have not changed. Which button? This? No.
Oh, yeah.
Ah. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
No, it's nice. So I mentioned climate change mitigation. Nevertheless, whether we like it or not, and we saw some image from Nicolas, the global warming is here. Is going to further improve or to further degrade in the forest-saving feature. You know, today we are on a 3-degree trajectory at the end of the century, so which means a lot and little. Nevertheless, warmer atmosphere mean more humid atmosphere, mean more convection, more turbulence, different type of wind patterns, and as the atmosphere is more humid, more difficult icing condition. So Airbus is part of a collaborative effort which start to gather all stakeholders which are critical to the topic. So the Met Office, obviously, the airlines, which are on the front line of those events, the ATM, ATC provider, the other OEMs, and the airworthiness authority as well. EASA has launched a year ago a dedicated working group to deal with the impact of climate change on adaptation, because what is at stake here is the safety of operations for our current products on the way forward, and then for the future product to design the aircraft to fly in an atmosphere which will be unlikely to be more friendly than it is today. There are clear evidence of the effect of global warming on temperature and wind pattern. So this has impact not that much on safety, but typically on performance, aircraft performance, or engine performance. When it is warmer, the thrust of the engine is lower, so there is some trend on engine deterioration which are related to this. Turbulence, I think there have been many events that have been publicly discussed over the past months. On that, there is no clear, straight, direct relation between the global warming and the frequencies of those effects and the criticality of those effects, but we start to see probably some trend appearing there. And in terms of icing condition as well, more warmer atmosphere mean more evaporation, more water, and more stronger icing conditions. So typically the engine is one of the elements which sees that threat coming in front of us. So there is a big strength of work on those areas. I think we are just, unfortunately, at the start of the journey. I'm pretty sure in some years we will have dedicated forum to only discuss about this. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's next one, please, Michael.
Hello, everybody. So I try to be pragmatic and fast. When I first heard about this panel and the story, and as I heard about that I have 5 minutes to talk about this for Lufthansa, I said, okay, will be tough, because I think that itself is a topic for a symposium for itself, but I will try to give you a little bit an impression of what can an airline do in this play. I think Before I start, it's all about expectation management. I think that's something which is the most important. So the topic is very sensitive, it's public, it's a societal-driven topic, and we must always be precise. Is the topic R&D, is it operational, or how far are we in the process? Because if we mix it up, we are not really honest to the society, and that's something we should, all of us, take care of. So I'll go in a rush and try to answer the question of what are we doing. So we're doing a lot. So we have to keep in mind that environmental protection is a win-win with fuel saving. So that's one of the core DNA of any airline, because that's the biggest cost driver. So since airlines exist, they start to optimize themselves in terms of their fuel consumption. So the environmental protection is always covered also by that. That's something which is very important. And here are some examples of what we are doing. I would recommend there's a link underneath, because I cannot talk about all of that in 5 minutes. There is a whole homepage where it is exactly describes what Lufthansa is doing. It's material to the shareholders as well, public as well, because I think many passengers are interested with that ticket, what is the influence. The most important on the left side is goals. So they are really dramatically high goals. Jaime touched them in the beginning in this morning session. So we talk about minus 50% CO2 until 2030. So I mean, we have 2025, and we want to reach 2030 minus 50% against the measurement baseline from 2019. So that's a huge effort which has been committed by the airlines. And on top of that, until 2015, CO2 neutrality. So it's probably the biggest aviation project in mankind to do this. And the most important, again, or on top of those goals, is that we also committed to same as with safety culture, it needs to be evidence and fact-based. So that's what Lufthansa did in terms of the science-based targets, because everybody is proposing a lot, and that doesn't really help. So we really need to do it correctly and measure it correctly, and also report it to everybody who is interested in the correct matter. Jaime mentioned it also this morning. The biggest driver is always fleet modernization. So modern aircraft, they use, it depends on which aircraft is replaced, but we talk about minus 30% fuel consumption. So that's the biggest driver. And that's what we are actively doing. I think we have more than 730 aircraft right now, and 250 aircraft on the order list. So that shows a little bit the relation of the modernization process which is going on, which is immense. Another part is sustainable aviation fuel. Jaime talked about that. We are the biggest one of the biggest clients worldwide. If there are products available, they will be sold. I know that we are participating in startups and trying to build up this whole machinery, but it's a huge project in terms of to deliver the supply chain. Next area is basically, that's what I'm doing within Lufthansa more or less in ATM development, is that we really talk about efficiency improvement and to optimize that what we are currently doing. Because I think that's what I mentioned in the beginning with expectation management. We should not always look at the far future about whatever kind of hydrogen, what aircraft. We should really look at what can we do with that what is already in the air, and what can we do in order to improve the environmental efficiency now. And there's many things are there. Some examples you see here on the left side, that's the AeroShark foil, which has been developed together with a German chemical company BASF in order to reduce the air or optimize the airstream around the airframe. So it's a fuel saving there as well, and environmental improvement. We talk about various measures of more sustainable flying and operations. Eric touched some on his slide, so other procedures, single taxi and whatsoever. So many things are happening by now in order to be better. We also talk about, because it's our interpretation of environmental sustainability, it's not only about CO2, non-CO2, it's also about waste and plastic reductions, for instance. So many projects have taken place to optimize that on board, to optimize supply chains, whatever. And we should not forget, in terms of environmental protection, the noise. So if you talk to local communities, it's sometimes a different interpretation. And sometimes it needs to be also the political decision of for a certain change, do we concentrate on the fuel saving, on the environmental saving in terms of CO2 and non-CO2, or do we concentrate on noise? Because we have had several experiences with procedure PBN implementations where decisions have been made against CO2 and non-CO2 in terms of to protect the society against noise, and something that we should keep in mind. Another point here is environmental management. So I think most of the Lufthansa companies, several hundreds, are somehow certified with this kind of processes. They are undergoing quality management systems, and that fits also to the what I said in the beginning with SPTI. So it's open, it's reported, and it's validated, because I think that's one of the most important. It's our DNA of aviation that we are able to argue and measure and provide evidence about something and do not only tell about that. The last point is climate research. So since many, many years, we are one of the only airlines globally measure climate sensitive data and provide data, for example, to the World Meteorological Organization and others in order to feed the academic research in terms of up-to-date live data from the aircraft. So that's something we do on a voluntary basis as well. So for the next slide, I'm quite quick because I spoke a lot, but this was a little bit to give you an example of what are we actually doing on a government level in order to the second question. So in the middle, I put the picture of the master plan in terms of the whole ATM innovation cycle, which is slow. EUROCAE is playing a huge role in it. That's the reason why I mentioned it there. We need a standardized harmonization to really push that circle forward. But in a nutshell, we are everywhere somehow. Airlines are really active in this whole process in order of when it comes to the definition of something in the master plan, when it comes to support of R&D projects. Some projects have been mentioned, Chiconia. We had a project called Decooled in Germany where we performed very live trials for contrail avoidance and things like that. So we support wherever we can and wherever it's really evident that it brings the system forward. We partner with infrastructure providers. We had many projects, for example, DFS, whoever from an NSP side is willing to support us and go with us this demonstration where we contribute. And the next step, for example, in the circle is that we perform feedback loop and reality checks, so we have access to real-time data, not only kind of forecasts or statistics, so we know exactly what happened in the air. And we assess this and feed it, for example, back into the CSAT deployment in order to challenge the effectiveness of certain projects or push things forward or explain it in a better manner. We are also investors as early movers, so we invested in FFIs quite early days in order to provide more flight plan information, for instance. We invested in ADSC, EPP, aircrafts are equipped already, continuously we are getting more into operation, and Victor is in the room, so we have really performed a good collaboration also with MUAC in terms of that we are able to measure that we are able to analyze what's going on and what can we do in order to establish, and that's the last point, flexible and resilient operational procedures, because in the end, that's missing a little bit. The panel is not only about climate, it's also about resilience, so everything gets more and more complex. And the resilience is the key, because that's really important to keep in mind. If we are not punctual, everything else is useless. Because we need to, the primary product of aviation is that we deliver the passengers punctual to the target, where they want to go. And if we have an unstable infrastructure, which we are faced to as in the summer, we will never be able to meet these environmental goals because the operational efficiency is going down dramatically. And that's something we should really tackle, that the capacity is there, the airspace capacity, that we are able to provide an infrastructure framework for the airlines to make maximum usage of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Rachel?
Thank you very much, Nicolas. And it's been really inspiring to hear about all the measures that Airbus and Lufthansa are taking on both adaptation and mitigation. I now have 5 minutes to tell you about all the things that EUROCONTROL are doing, and I'm not even going to dare try and change the slide. I'm going to ask the Mr. Moderator to do it for me. So, for those of you who are not familiar with us, we are the European Organisation for Air Navigation. Our main role is to support our 41 member states in the safe and efficient management of European airspace. But we also have other diverse roles, such as collecting the route charges from airlines for using that airspace, promoting operational measures to increase efficiency and reduce emissions. We don't set standards, but we do provide support to standardisation. And we also have a big focus on sustainability, which is where I fit in. So, on the decarbonisation side, we work with a wide range of stakeholders, from individual organisations such as airlines, ANSPs, airports. We work with our member states, we work with the European Commission, and we work with ICAO. So we do a lot of work to promote operational efficiencies for the European Commission. We support the implementation of the ETS, and for ICAO, the implementation of the CORSIA emissions reduction scheme. The other panellists have mentioned non-CO2. We're increasingly becoming involved in work on that. We host the ContrailNet research platform. And of course, as an air traffic management organisation, the measures that are being proposed for contrail avoidance is something that we're following closely. And our latest deliverable is the Flying Green platform of services, which is intended to support stakeholders, individual organisations, and member states with their decarbonisation and adaptation initiatives. Next slide, please, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. So, on the climate adaptation side, we produced our first study on the potential impacts of climate change for the European aviation sector in 2008. Since then, we've produced various studies and analyses on the potential impacts of climate change for the sector and the potential adaptation and resilience measures that are available. We also co-chair European Climate Change Adaptation Working Group with ACI Europe and co-lead or lead tasks at ICAO on climate change adaptation and resilience. And Eric mentioned it before, collaboration. So this is one of the things that we're really trying to promote through the European Working Group, to bring stakeholders together to share their experiences, their good practices, and increasingly to try and promote climate change risk assessment. So this is really important to understand what the potential impacts and challenges we might have to face are. They're going to be different for every organisation, depending on their location, their type of operation, the climate they already experience, and how that's expected to change. So it's really important for individual organisations to carry out climate change risk assessments, to understand what might happen, how likely is it to happen, and what are the consequences if it does happen. So we are producing guidance on that at the moment in the European group, and we've also produced guidance at ICAO level. And from the collaboration perspective, just to emphasise that we think this is crucial because we are a network. We are many organisations that contribute to that network. But if you have a disruption in one part of the network, then that has a knock-on effect across the network. So it's really important for us all to aim for the highest levels of resilience possible. So I think my key takeaway from what we've heard so far and from this is that it's essential to work on decarbonisation or mitigation and adaptation in parallel. I think until now, probably rightly so, there has been an emphasis on the decarbonisation aspect. We know we do need to decarbonise rapidly. We are doing a lot of work towards that, but we need to accelerate. There's more that needs to be done, for example, to increase the uptake of sustainable aviation fuel. But we also know that because of historical and ongoing carbon emissions, we are locked into a certain amount of climate change, And so the impacts that we experience are going to be only becoming more intense. So, okay, we know that aviation can deal with disruptive weather, but as climate change makes those impacts more severe and more frequent, it's only going to become more challenging. So we also have to start to put more resources into the climate change adaptation and resilience aspects as well. And I will leave it there. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Now, let's listen.
Thank you very much. Okay, right. Move this along. Yes, so thank you very much to Anna and the EUROCAE team for the invitation, and it's an honour to be here and a great symposium as always. So I'm going to talk about the incredibly important role of standards in these two aspects, the protection and the mitigation. And this, by the way, is just a kind of a stock template slide, but all at contrails. So very germane. But I'm quite pleased to be able to provide quite a positive perspective on this, because there is already quite a lot of work going on. I think what we'll see is that there'll be a need to enhance certain areas, but we have a great platform. Not just some of the things which have been kicked off in the last few years, particularly on the sustainability side, but some of the mitigation aspects which have actually been going on for much longer. So. The main message here with the sustainability aspect, primarily decarbonisation, but not exclusive to that, is that there is great progress ongoing at SAE, EUROCAE, and other organisations. Starting off at manufacturing and materials and decarbonising some of the manufacturing processes using environmentally friendly materials. We have some new specifications that support those the materials and process transformations. It's also looking at reducing fuel burn from the from reducing weight in the aircraft. Obviously. Carbon fibre fuselage and airframe is not new, but that's something which is being developed all the time. Standards play an incredibly important role in that, along with more on the component side, the acceleration of additively manufactured products, where you can bring a lot of weight out from a components and equipment perspective using additive techniques. So that's starting to come in, but has a great effect on the overall weight and reduce fuel burn. Then we get on to some of what Eric was talking about in the propulsion efficiencies, and standards are supporting all of those activities, whether it's kind of the smaller changes with today's engines and architectures, or whether it's looking forward to some of those exciting, open rotor concepts. Some of the existing standards will be able to support those activities as well. The new aspects, electric, hybrid propulsion, just a couple of weeks ago, actually, SAE's E40 committee met in conjunction with EUROCAE's WG113, so some really solid progress being made there, with a number of activities, both already published and in progress, to support the development and, importantly, the certification of electric and hybrid propulsion. There's work going on. ASTM, of course, have got a lot of the SAF standards for the fuel itself. What we're doing on top of that is looking at the effects of different blends of SAF on the airframe and current systems. So we're looking at where standards may need to be adapted to compensate for that, to use more and more SAF. And then with H2, again, it's a great collaboration between SAE and EUROCAE. Groups have been going since actually 2008. They produced their first document in 2013. It's WG80 and A7F, and a new airport infrastructure, A5CH group. So they've already produced quite a lot. They're really focusing now on the liquid hydrogen aspect, as well as the infrastructure. but that's really providing a really good base for the manufacturers and the certification agencies. And then, of course, we heard yesterday about trajectory-based operations, and that's going to be a key driver in the very, very big role. And we've heard from great work that that Cesar and EUROCONTROL are doing as well in ATM and route optimization. Again, reducing that fuel burn. So that's on the what we need to do now to ensure that we have a more sustainable future. What about mitigating some of the effects today? And again, this is something which we don't necessarily need to start everything right now, because there's a lot of activities that have been going on for quite a number of years that can be adapted and enhanced. So for a long time, we've had emissions measurement and modelling standards, both on the particulate gaseous emissions and noise emissions through committees which directly support the CAPE standards. Our supersonic aircraft steering group has started to look at climate modelling. That's an emergent activity, but that's going to be really, really important. I think we will work well with a lot of what Nicolas was saying. On the aircraft side and the operational side, weather detection systems, we heard yesterday about the importance of data link with that, and being able to do that in-flight routing to avoid, where possible, weather effects. And then some other aspects, lightning protection. So SA and EUROCAE have a joint activity on lightning protection, WG31 and AE2, and that's been going on for a long, long time. I think now there's a recognition that may need to be to rise in emphasis, but again, that's an ongoing activity. There are other documents looking, for example, at the effects of space weather and avionics and other systems, and then the AC90 committee with SAE works with EUROCAE's WG95 on ice detection. Then there are some other in-flight icing technology standards. So again, a lot going on, but I think what we need to do now is look at this. Obviously, the recognition that that this is encompassing the whole value chain and all of the different stakeholders, but critically, this has to be on a global stage as well. So wonderful activities here in Europe, in other parts of the world, but we do need to work together collaboratively, because yes, there's policy. Everyone needs to be involved. Policy in the government, everything to do with the role of research, the regulatory aspect through ICAO and the authorities, the industry, of course, the operators, the airports, critical role, everything that the ANSPs bring and ATM, and then underpinned by the SDOs. And we do really need to look at this cohesively now in a way that hasn't been done before. I think that's a great opportunity, but again, the positive aspect is that we don't have to start from scratch. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Okay, we have 5 minutes to discuss some questions from the public. So, first of all, thank you very much, all the panelists, for bringing this nice presentation. One question is related: what gaps does the European aviation industry currently have in implementing green policy and mitigation adaptation strategies? What are the gaps now in Europe?
I can take that on adaptation. I think we're really lacking that holistic overview of what's being done and what needs to be done. So I think we need to work together more. We need to have a more constructive and systematic approach to climate change risk assessment at European level, at both member state level, at the European level and individual organisation level. and to bring that together so we really build a holistic overview of what the risks are that we're facing, where we're facing them, what adaptation action is being taken, and what's needed. So in an ideal world, I would suggest a European climate change action plan. That might be a bit of wishful thinking, but I think that's the sort of thing we need to be aiming for.
Thank you very much, Rachel. So one important thing, as you know, is the geopolitical aspects. As you know, we are suffering strong changes. It's not only related with policy, it's just for situations, different situations around the world. And this impact our aviation industry. So how we are going to make a resilient aviation industry? How we are going to support this? Because climate change is continuous, is ongoing, and there is no gap, there is no any halt or stop in that, because it's still growing, the temperature, but the resources, no. So we need to take any actions on that. So just because we have a lack of time, so the last question is, in this increasing deglobalized world, how can we develop an industry mitigation and adaptation strategy in this deglobalized world? Deglobalized.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think that's where forums like this are really, really important, because there are definitely some geopolitical realities, and which are sometimes challenging. But the industry, our aviation, our aerospace industry is global. It works very, very well together globally, and through organizations like EUROCAE and SAE, RTCA and others, working globally and collaborating, we can actually do a lot together underneath the politics. There may be different policies coming from different parts of the world, but we can do a lot to progress things as collectively as an industry. But there has to be the will and the resource, because that's really our challenge. We can do a lot with the resource, but it has to be there. Otherwise, we will go too slowly.
Perfect. Totally agree with that. So we have a lack of time. So thank you to our panelists for this rich exchange. Let's carry the momentum onward, because the sky is not the limit, but a shared responsibility. We have only one planet, one home, one sky. Safe travel, and let's work together. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much to the panelists.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alles Gute, ciao.
Very nice session once again. So if you see me on stage, it's because I am very happy having been re-elected as president of the association. So I would like first to thank the members for electing me to the council, and then the council for renewing their confidence and electing me as president of the association. So thank you very much. I will also address my thanks for those who stand up with me to lead the association. So Thomas as your new vice president, Michael Osbauer as our vice president, and Benoît Gasset as our treasurer. So thank you very much to all of you. I won't go into too much detail recap of the 2 days, because we don't have much time, so Anna told me to be quick. So just to remind you that there were 6 engaging panels. That was very, very interesting topic, and 8 flash talk. Definitely, I had a great time. It was really well organized and very pleasant to be here. So thank you very much to our Spanish colleagues. Thank you very much for everybody organizing. I won't go into the thanks because that's the role of Anna, so I will give you the floor to Anna so that you could thank everybody in the name of all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guillaume. Before I do go to the thanks, I just want to do a couple of housekeeping remarks. So all the sessions will be available on YouTube in the next couple of days. The presentations will not be made available separately, but you can watch them on YouTube, and there you have all the slides as well. Pictures will be made available on Flickr in the next couple of days, and you will receive an email with the link to the Flickr album, as well as a link to the feedback form. So please take those 5 or 10 minutes, give us your feedback to make this event even more enjoyable than it was. I would like to thank all the panelists that we've had, all the speakers, the moderators, the people who prepared it in the back end. I would like to thank all of you for being here. We've had, and I have to look at my notes, 57 organizations at this event with close to 150 participants. So I think this is a great turnout, and I thank all of you for being here. I would like to thank again our sponsors. Without you, this would not be possible. And your continued support, in addition to everything that you do, being here, the presentations that you provide, all the local support that in particular Indra and Enaira provided are really, really much appreciated. So thank you. Airbus, Indra, Enaira, Collins, Skyguide, Frequentis, Honeywell, Ansen, and the European Commission. Again, a big thank you to all. I think these pictures, a picture says more than 1,000 words, right? Looking into just happy faces, I think this is the biggest applause for us all. But before giving all of you a big round of applause, I'd like to give a big round of applause to my team, all of which are here, I think, in the first row.
So if you please could stand up and turn to the audience, please.
So Anna and the team of all the technical program managers, Alex, Alain, who can't be with us, but he was with us in thoughts, Attika, Bertrand, Mark, Tuk, Matvi and Elizabeth, Laura, who made it all very, very easy here. Our 2 interns also, Mario and Matteo, who did a lot of this work in the background. And then obviously our magician, Iago, who's put this all together for us. Thank you all. And with this, there's just one last important thing to do.
Yes, I know. So the notes Anna has written say, don't say anything, just push the button. So I will follow. It's a reminder of last year where I spoiled the announcement. So I won't make the same mistake twice. I promised Anna. Otherwise, I think that she would find a way to eject me from the council the day we decide. So I won't know the location of next year. So, well, I will just push the button.
Once more.
Maybe more than once. Even that I couldn't do it correctly. So it will be Dublin, and now I can say it.
So thank you very much again. See you in Dublin next year. Safe travels home, and for those that are staying in Madrid, enjoy the city and the sunshine. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.